into this May wrap up. So the way that I think I want to do my wrap ups is a little different. So I will still be including my star ratings and my reviews of the book, but I kind of want to wrap them up by the vibes that they give me. So we'll have 5 categories and they will range from worst to best. My first category will be the absolutely hated category, and the books in those are books that I would not recommend, books that I might not have even finished, or if I finished it, it wasn't good. It was bad. It was really, really, really bad. And so those are books that I would not recommend for you to read. And then moving into the next category, I'm going to call it It's a No for Me. And basically, it's not that this book was a bad book, but it's just something that was not for me. So I'm going to say it's a no for me, but you might like it. And then our middle category, I guess you could say, is the meh or mid. Can't decide which one I like better. So for right now, I'm going to say meh because that's my emotions for the book. Like, it was meh. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't great either. It was just like, okay, we read it. It's a book. It happened. I would still recommend these books. I just didn't particularly love them. And then we can move into our really enjoyed category. And I really enjoyed these books. They aren't quite top tier books for me, but I really had a great time reading them. I would recommend them. Like, these are really good books, in my opinion, that I think everyone should pick up. And then we have the best of the best books of the year category. And these books will be my best books of the year. And I have been struggling this year actually because I think I've only had 4, maybe 5, but I think 4 for sure, 5 stars this year. And look, it's June, the end of May, beginning of June, and I've only had 4 5 stars. No, we gotta pick this up. The first book in the absolutely hated category is unfortunately On the Same Page by Haley Cass. And this is a sapphic romance book that is essentially friends to lovers. They were college friends, and this book is told in a dual timeline. So we flash back to their college days, and that is the perspective that kind of got it for me. The flashback chapters felt a little preachy, a little too I'm not like other girls, I'm better than you because I'm a nicer person type vibe, and I just did not like that. And then I also had an issue in the present timeline with the setup for, I don't want to spoil it, but the setup for the main part of the book. I saw it coming when it started happening. I was like, look, no, like, really, like, this real? So yeah, I DNF'd this book. I was not a fan. So the next book in my absolutely hated category is, unfortunately, The Good Ones Are Taken by Taj McCoy. So I don't have the best history with Taj McCoy, so maybe I should not have picked this up, but I like to give authors 3 tries, right? So I read her release last year, which was Zora Books' Her Happy Ever After, and then I also read Even If the Sky is Falling, which is an anthology that was edited by Taj McCoy, but she also had a story in it, and I was not a fan of that either. So picking this one up, I was kind of nervous, and I shouldn't have done it because first it felt like I was reading Zora Books Her Happy Ever After, because this is also a love triangle. It's a very similar setup, which I'm like, you don't have any more ideas? We're just love triangling it out. And then they're not even good love triangles, because there's clearly one person who is just an awful person in every book. And I'm just like, oh. But to top that off, our main character, Maggie, was also insufferable. She just was not a good person to me. She was not a good friend. She's supposed to be a maid of honor in her best friend's wedding, and she was making everything about her. She wasn't completing the tasks that her best friend is asking her to do, and she's just like, yeah, I'm a bad person, but y'all love me because I'm a bad person, so I'm gonna keep being a bad person, and I'm not gonna really grow. Not a fan. So, moving into the It's a No for Me category, I want to talk about At Her Service by Amy Spalding. This was also a DNF for me, but I feel like it was just because I really wasn't into the setup of the story. This is about a girl who's an assistant to like a talent agent type person in Hollywood, and she's feeling kind of down. She's ready to move up, but that hasn't happened for her yet, and just she has a crush on her bartender, but she doesn't know if he likes her. It's just, it felt very elementary. And I'm like, we're too old for this. Not for, like not knowing your place in life, but just some of the things that she was saying and some of the ways that she was acting. I'm like, girl, you're supposed to be, I think, late 20s, and you're acting like you're 18. And I wasn't a fan of that. And I DNF'd it, didn't want to go through it. But I don't think that this was horrible. I think that some people might like it. It just wasn't for me. This one is a little sad for me because I wanted to love this. I thought I was gonna love this, um, and I didn't. And that is The Space Between Worlds by Micaiah Johnson. I'd heard that this was sapphic, this is sci-fi, this is written by a black author, and I'm like, okay, that sounds like all the things that would make a perfect book for me because I am trying to get into sci-fi, so I thought this would be a good start. And the prologue and the first couple of chapters, I was here. I was loving it. I was like, ooh, I found it. Yes, it's her. It's this. And then for some reason, I felt like the book just completely changed. I felt like I was reading a different story and I wasn't connecting anymore. And I also, now knowing who the love interest was going to be, I couldn't see how we were going to get to that point because the relationship that they had in the beginning of the book, it didn't lead me to believe that there was gonna like be a believable romance. So I ended up DNFing this, and I was really sad about it. But yeah, I think it's just not for me because I did like the writing. So yeah, there's that. Our first meh book of May is A Touch of Ruin by Scarlett St. Clair. This is the second book in the Hades and Persephone saga, and y'all, y'all, I did tab this book. If you can see, there's a lot of tabs in here. I enjoyed where the story went in this book, but Persephone, girl, what were you doing? She was so insufferable in this book. It almost took me out. It almost took me out because I'm like, why are you acting like this? Like she was just acting out and being bratty this entire book, and I'm like, girl, get it together because I don't like it. Like, grow up. And so I think that was my biggest issue with this book was that Persephone was doing the most and not in a good way. I do like where the story went. I like the things that we explored in this book. But yeah, and I do think that because I've read the third book before, I know that this is Persephone's growth story. And, when you're going through life and learning lessons and growing, it is ugly and it's not, I'm sure we all get on other people's nerves when we're trying to figure it out. So I understand that part of it, but yeah, yeah. Next up in the mech category, we have Kingdom of the Cursed by Kerri Maniscalco, and this is the second book in the Kingdom of the Wicked series. And I feel like what's interesting slash strange about this book to me is that it feels like it's a different series from Kingdom of the Wicked. I know that the book transitioned from young adult to like new adult ish into this book, but it also feels like it changed up storylines completely. Like the first book was more fantasy, with Amelia trying to figure out who murdered Victoria. That's not spoilery, it's in the synopsis. Um, and that was mainly what that book was about. But this one became a romance, and it kind of looks like we lost the plot. And Amelia trying to figure out what happened to Victoria kind of took a back seat and was just kind of mentioned every blue moon. So, it didn't, she wasn't actually doing anything in my opinion, but she just mentioned it like, oh yeah, I'm supposed to be doing this, but this right here is more important. So I don't know where we're gonna go in the third book, but I think that this one kind of lost the plot a little bit. And then we have Shadow of Night by Deborah Harkness, and this is the second book in the All Souls series. Now that I'm thinking about it, we have 3 books that are all second books in a series that suffered from second book syndrome to me. Hmm, interesting. Pretty cool. Not really, but interesting. So, Shadow of Night, if you've heard anybody talk about this series, then you have not heard great things about this book because not many people have great things to say about this book. But what I will say is that similar to Kingdom of the Wicked, I feel like this one lost the plot. The first book, by the end of it, we had a mission. We were set out to do something. We were going to do that something, and then once this book started, as a continuation of that, that something took the back seat. It took the trunk, if I'm being honest. Like, I'm like, okay, we just dilly dallying and vacationing, and y'all not. Did y'all forget what you're supposed to be doing? Like, you're supposed to be on a mission. There are some things that happen that keep this kind of interesting, but yes, very slow moving. That's all I can say. But I am interested and excited to keep pushing with this. At least it didn't make me want to not continue on. So next is So Happy for You by Celia Lasky. And I think this is a really interesting, I'm guessing it's like a thriller type book. And it's about our main character who doesn't really believe in the institution of marriage. And in this version of the world, marriage is like the government's pushing marriage down people's throats. There's apps that tell you like you're undesirable after a certain age, and like breathing in really heavy on you need to get married, you need to get married. But she doesn't believe in marriage. Um, and her childhood best friend asked her to be her maid of honor, even though she knows that, weddings and marriage is not her thing. So she does it anyway. But also in this world, there are wedding charms. And these charms are like rituals and sacrifices and all these weird things that are supposed to make your marriage better, make it last longer, make you more fertile, all that kind of stuff. So basically, it's just stories of this bride claiming to not believe in those things, but eventually stuff starts unfolding and these charms start happening, and then a really crazy explosive charm happens. And my problem with this was that I feel like we spent a lot of time in the past. So we spent a lot of time learning about the main character's relationship to her sister, the main character's relationship with the bride, and then the ending. Y'all, this ending was so unbelievable because no, there's no way. There's no way. And that's all I have to say about that. Next up, we have The Bridge Kingdom by Danielle L. Jenson. And my problem with this mainly comes in at the romance. I think the world building was super cool. I enjoyed being in this world. I'd never read anything quite like it before, so it was cool to learn about, the boats and being on the water and the bridge. Um, but there was a romance for me that kind of was the disconnect. It felt like we went from 0 to 100, and not in like a good way, because I don't think I mind insta love, but this didn't even feel like insta love. It felt like, oh, I love you for all of these deep reasons, but we never got to see those deep reasons actually happen. So it just felt like you were saying all these things, but like we didn't have the evidence to back that up as readers. So then I listened to The Golden Spoon by Jessa Maxwell on audio. And I think it was good that I listened to it on audio because I feel like I might have possibly DNF'd it if I was reading it physically. Um, I think the audio was really good having the different narrators for each character because it allowed me to separate each person, based on the voice. And I feel like if I had been reading physically, that would have been harder to keep track of. Um, but this was a silly, goofy time. I love the Great British Baking Show, so it was fun to kind of see that with a twist to it. I did not, however, like the ending of this. I felt like it was a little rushed and also like maybe unfair. If you know, you know. But I don't know. I just felt a little weird about it, and I felt like the bulk of the book was about these characters and their motivations and why they were coming to the baking show, but the actual like mystery part and the whodunit part really didn't last long enough. And I feel like if we had sat in that more, it would have, been more interesting. And I also feel like it was very obvious what happened, and maybe like we could have done more to make that less obvious and it would have been a better read. Anyway, I had a good time. It was quick, it was fun, and if you're looking for something like that to listen to, then I would recommend The Golden Spoon. So the last book in the meh category is How to Kill Men and Get Away with It by Katy Brent. And this caught me off guard. I thought we were going to have a silly, goofy time, and that was not what this was. This was very heavy. It had moments where I guess it kind of balanced the heavy with the humorous moments, but I was not expecting descriptions of SA in this book. And I suggest if you're going to pick it up, please like do some research and dig into find trigger warnings, because I think I just read like the Goodreads synopsis and it made it sound fun and cute. And so I was unprepared to say the least. But I do think it's a good story. Uh, it's weird to kind of say that I did have fun with it. I thought the premise was very interesting, and that's why I wanted to read it, because like we out here killing bad men. Like, yes, sign me up. Not to kill, but to read about somebody doing it. I mean, clarify. Um, that's not my thing, but I will read about somebody else doing it. So yeah, I would just be very cautious going into this and definitely do more research than I did. But I think it was it's a good story. Moving on into my really enjoyed category, let's talk about One for My Enemy by Olivie Blake. Now, I have read the Atlas series by Olivie Blake, and it's like one of my favorite series of all time. So I was excited to read this one. I am not, however, a fan of Romeo and Juliet, or like Romeo and Juliet retellings. I did not know that. I wasn't sure if that was going to be my thing or not, but because it's involved witches, I was like, okay, I love a witchy read, so I'll give it a shot. And I love Olivie's writing, so yeah, this was it was a time. I think I really enjoyed it. Of course, I love the writing in this. Olivie can write a book, for sure, every time. But this wasn't without its problems. I feel like some of the parts were really drawn out. And of course, I feel like because this is written like a play, it's supposed to be dramatic, it's supposed to be over the top, but that also kind of didn't eat at times. And it was a little bit like, okay, all right, okay. I did like the how it was written though, because the different scenes and the different acts and things like that, it was really cool to experience in this, and it made it read quicker. The characters in this was frustrating, especially the parents. I think were the most frustrating to me in this, because I'm like, y'all don't love y'all kids. Y'all don't love y'all kids at all. But I had a fun time with this. This was different for me. This was really cool, but I would definitely recommend this. Alrighty, and then and I really enjoyed category, we have Rain and Ruin by J.D. Evans. This is the first book in the Mages of the Wheel series, and it's a fantasy slash fantasy romance series. It's really heavy on political intrigue, court politics, and I had a great time. The magic system in this was really cool. It's based on a wheel, and I had never seen anything like that before. I was confused when I started, and I was like, wait a minute, what's happening? What's going on? I really don't know. But once you got into it, more was explained once you got into the book. And that first part was really about the world, about the fantasy portion of it, and about our heir to the Sultanate, who is a woman. And of course, the council thinks only a man can rule. So she's constantly trying to prove herself every day that she can rule on her own without a man. And she's trying to bring all of the kingdoms back together because a war separated them. But of course, there's issues with that. So she seeks the help of one of the princes from one of these kingdoms, and it just kind of goes from there. And the second part is more where the romance comes in. And even then, it's not at the forefront, but I really enjoyed this couple. It has a shadow daddy in it, and I know y'all love the shadow daddies. So if you are interested, pick that up. I really, really, really want more people to read this because I just thought it was really cool and something different from what we normally get in this genre. And last but certainly not least, we have the book, one book that ended up in my best book of the year category from May. And that is Glow of the Everflame by Penn. This is the second book in the Kindred's Curse saga series. And y'all, this ate. Like, I was nervous after reading Spark of the Everflame. I wasn't even really sure if I wanted to continue on in the series, but I just saw so many people talking about the second book and how the second book hit and how it was so good. So I was like, okay, we can just do it. Why not? And I am so happy that I did. This was a 4.5. It gave what I was wanting Spark to give. We picked right up after the events of book one. And yeah, we finally got to see more of the love interest and how that relationship was blossoming. We got to learn more about the world and more about DM. She is still annoying. DM will always be annoying, but I'm trying to give her grace because, I can kind of understand why she's making these decisions sometimes, but, she's getting better. We see growth. Um, so yeah, I'm really excited and scared to go into Heat of the Everflame because I've seen the ratings from some of the people who have read that book. And I'm like, look, Penn Cole, don't play with me. Don't do this to me. Don't do this. So that is my May wrap up. We got a good amount of decent books this month, but I am looking forward to June and hoping that, this gets better. It has to get better because I'm tired of the meh books, the mid books. I need some more 5 stars. So I'm hoping that June can give that to me. And thank you so much for watching this video and taking time out of your day to spend with me. I can't wait to see you in the next one. I love you guys. Have a great day. And yeah, bye.